Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aquarian Mind podcast. Today's podcast, episode number 216. I'm your host, Jamel Crothers. It's Book Insight Friday. You guys know what time it is. It's time for me to delve into writing Alphabet City 1. And the book is already out. It's released. Came out January 26th. It's available in all bookstores except Amazon. And I'm at a place now where I'm going to have my own separate website for my bookstore and, for everyone to have access to buying my books, my audiobooks, all of that stuff. So that'll be on payhip.com/Jamel Crothers. Currently in the process of, finishing up, putting up some books. So anyway, let's get it moving along. So the start of the Alphabet series, I wanted to bring it, from an energy standpoint from the get-go. The main character, his name is LJ, Larry Jamal. His story starts at a prestigious HBCU. If you guys don't know what those are, it's historically black colleges and universities. And, I don't specifically say what school, but you can pretty much think of any HBCU you want to. Howard, Florida A&M, Texas Southern, Morehouse, whatever you want to think of as far as a school, knock yourself out. But he tells his story of growing up in Alphabet City, and he breaks down the neighborhood, gang life, and what it's like growing up there. He speaks on the aura and energy of living in Alphabet City, how death is around the corner, and I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. And sometimes we hear of what it's like to grow up in a tough neighborhood, but to feel it and visualize it from LJ's perspective, it brings more energy to it. Now, for me, LJ is a character I wanted to make sure I brought out the pain and I really didn't sugarcoat anything. His life is nothing short of sad, tragic, and takes some horrific experiences for someone to save him. His life is pretty much nothing short of resilience. And even though he talks about his mental struggles, there's hope that he does make it. For a kid like LJ to make it out, he's one of the lucky ones to have left Alphabet City and not returned for years. So that is part of this storyline. And he questions if he'll go back, but you can never say never, right? And I'll admit, I've gone back to some old neck of the woods myself. So it's really nothing to be ashamed of, but all he wants is for his life to continually improve. And, I don't want to give away this story, but let's just say that a lot of kids just don't get the opportunity and the chance to make it out of the inner cities. And the goal for me with this 12-book series is to really give you different perspectives of what it's like growing up in the inner city. Scripted TV, it gives you a glimpse, police shows, it gives you a glimpse, but a lot of that stuff is scripted into a short time frame. So if you get an hour show, you're going to get really 45 minutes, give or take, things of that nature. And unfortunately, a lot of, what's on social media, on television, there's this glorification of the inner city. And this series for me, there's a lot that I put into it. And I put into it, if you guys listen to last week's podcast, you're going to meet a gang member, in this series, you're going to meet a drug dealer. And no one talks of the consequences of being in a gang or drug dealing or, getting into trouble or, being involved with the wrong crowd. And these are things that I want to really put out there. The safety of young kids, not being able to really be outside and play and enjoy life and be in a park and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that I am really putting into perspective. Like I've said, with LJ, I'm covering a good amount of things, but just not everything. So as the book series continues, You will, a lot of things that go on in the inner city will get covered. I will sit here and admit to you right now, I do not cover every single aspect of what goes on in the inner city in this series. And I do that for a purpose and reason, because I don't want to overwrite books. I don't want to give you too much. I want to layer it to where you have a full understanding and grasp of what this person is experiencing and going through. And some things aren't going to impact some of these characters compared to if I write a new series down the road of inner cities and really writing it from a young adolescent's perspective, then you'll really get a feel for things. You will meet Jermaine and Shamika, in the series. I think that's part 5 of the series. They're young teens. They cover, certain aspects of things that they deal with and things that are affecting them. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that there's a unfortunate small percentage of young kids that are able to really, get out of, the inner city and the bad neighborhoods and the things that, they see, hear, and deal with on a regular basis. And I do push the whole hearing of police sirens and, ambulances driving through, the neighborhoods all the time. And, there's a perspective of that. And there's a lot of single mothers in the inner cities and, a lot of different things that I'm covering to really shine light on what's going on. LJ, at this point, he's 20 years old when this story does start, and he's chronicling his life from when he was a young kid through his middle school years, through high school, and, him being able to get out, but through unfortunate circumstances, and then getting to where he is now. But through that process, he's had to mentally block out a lot of things so he can get by. And so that really puts things in perspective. And it really isn't until really the end of, the story where you really get to feel and see his pain of not being able to share some of his milestones and experiences with the most important people in his life. So this book is very powerful. And to be really honest, like, I didn't want to write it this way, but I feel like I had to, because life is full of ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride, and we all go through it. And I really, want you guys to really see, understand, and hear that this is the journey and this is the grind, and this is what, unfortunately he has to deal with and what he has to go through. And hopefully it opens eyes to like what a lot of young kids are seeing and hearing and dealing with. It's easy to, look at the news and see it on TV and turn it off and go, okay, I'm fine. But it's harder to really pick up a book or listen to it in audio format and really feel it and understand it and grasp it and go, oh, wow, like this is really what goes on with these young kids. And this is really what they're experiencing and what they're really dealing with. So I don't sugarcoat this series. This series is very dark. And if you, look at the book covers of it, of this series, to kind of throw something out there, I do pre-made book covers, things like that, but I do change and tweak things. And if you notice, as each book goes along, you will see dark clouds, in Alphabet City. And that's what this neighborhood is. It's a dark cloud of uncertainty of what's to come from day to day. And even the summer days can be bright and sunny and great, and something tragic happens and it all of a sudden changes the mood and aura of the neighborhood. And that's what a lot of what LJ is going to talk about. And he does, break down the gangs and the territories and things of that nature. I don't say specific gang names. I just call them gang colors. That's it. I just don't want to, glorify that. So, I feel like by me, putting the names of the most prevalent and most well-known gangs, in the United States and also, in other countries, it's giving them, a little too much credit, a little too much precedence, and I don't feel the need to really do that. So a character like LJ to start a 12-book series was important for me. And, it gives you a feel for what this series is and will consist of. It's about struggle, but in the end, like I said, there's always hope and that things will change for the better. But, there's always the question of how. So that's my podcast for today. Alphabet City is available on Barnes & Nobles, Apple, Kobo, Scribe, Smashwords, for ebooks. Payhip.com/Jamel Crothers. It will be on there. And paperbacks are available on the book patch. I will have the links pretty much on the bottom, pretty much of the description of this podcast. Also, a heads up, next week, there will be no podcasts. There will be no podcast next week. I have a lot going on next week. A lot of good things. Nothing bad, so don't worry about that. Just a lot of things that I have to manage and take care of. And even though I do, pre-record podcasts, I am, focused on a lot of different things right now. And there will be no podcast next week. The following week, I do have intentions on having podcasts. So Monday, February 13th, I will be making a return, and my podcast will continue there. So with that said, have a good weekend, be productive, be good, everyone, and go accomplish your goals.